Hello everyone and welcome back to another average review, and today we're looking at a figure that I've been excited to get for a long while now. The Marvel Legends Marvel vs. Capcom style Gamerverse Juggernaut. Now looking at the box, and it's very similar to all the Gamerverse 2-pack boxes, except, the proportions are a bit altered to, fit this deluxe figure of the Juggernaut. On the side, we can see a bit of pixel art of the Juggernaut, a render of the figure, and his name at the bottom. And on the back, we can see a cool, shot of the Juggernaut with Silver Samurai, along with a couple other figures in the wave advertised up here, being Wolverine, who is packed with Silver Samurai, and, well, it's meant to be Shumagorath, but it's called Gargantos for copyright reasons, who's another deluxe figure from this same wave. And at the very top, we see a very, very brief and basic bio for the Juggernaut. So overall, yeah, just like all the other Marvel vs. Capcom style boxes, I really like the packaging for this Juggernaut figure. It's clean, it's well done, and, well, it fits the Marvel vs. Capcom aesthetic. But, come on, are we really interested in the packaging when there's a brand new Juggernaut that many are calling the definitive release of the character? So yeah, let's get him out of the box. Alright, getting this Juggernaut out of the box, and it's easy to see why this is a deluxe release. Bit of a spoiler for the figure comparisons later, but I mean, look at this guy next to Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. He's massive. And that's to say nothing about the impressive sculpt on this guy. I mean, looking at the helmet itself is sculpted pretty basically, but I mean, that's a pretty good, Juggernaut head sculpt underneath the actual helmet. I mean, they even have the gums painted and everything. I do think it looks a little weird, what with the massive dentures and far apart eyes that are super close to the nose and mouth, but I mean, that's kind of how Juggernaut looks a lot of the time. His facial proportions are a little messed up. That's probably why he hides them under that helmet. But looking a bit down to the torso and arms, and man, they are impressively detailed. I mean, just look at the sheer musculature on this figure. You have the veins sculpted in, the, bicep sort of bracelets, the bracelets at the wrists, and, hand guards. They're pretty impressive. And for some reason, they decided to go all out on, the lighter red part of Juggernaut's, abdomen. Look at how impressive this, sort of knitted sculpting looks right there. I mean, that's pretty crazy looking, especially when compared to the other figure, well, the rest of the figure being mostly smooth. It's a little odd, but hey, I'm not going to say no to more sculpted detail. And the lines going down, that part of the Juggernaut's, abdomen is still stands out much more compared to the knitting, which is pretty good. Moving down, and he's, of course, got very, very muscular, legs, because, I mean, he's the Juggernaut, he's built like a tank, and he's got some pretty nice looking boots with the treads painted and sculpted. Even on the bottom, look at the sheer detail of these big, big boots. Looking on the back end, yeah, there isn't much other than, well, more of the super impressively sculpted musculature. What can I say? This Juggernaut is fantastic looking. And I should mention, the helmet design is a bit different than usual because it is directly based on the Marvel vs. Capcom design. What with this little separated chin piece that sort of has a bit of a spike at the end. You can also see the sculpted in bolts on the helmet too. So, yeah, this Juggernaut is pretty impressively sculpted, but the painting, there isn't really much. I mean, there's a lot of detail on the face under the helmet, but for the rest of it, it's mostly just, flat colors, which does make sense. This is a pretty basic Juggernaut design. Now, would I have said no to more detailing? Like a bit of extra paint on the arms or, on the boots? No, I wouldn't have said no to that at all. But it's not bad looking. But the real question is, how is the articulation on this Juggernaut? Now, moving on to the articulation, and Juggernaut's head is on a ball joint and a disc hinge, but unfortunately, he doesn't really get much up and down. It more so just looks like back and forth. Doesn't get any tilt side to side either because of that really bulky helmet, but he does get spinning all the way around, although mine's head just popped off, so maybe the chin sort of gets in the way of that, too. Which is a little unfortunate, but sometimes that's the price you pay for accuracy. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't actually spin his head all the way around without popping the head off. Moving down to the shoulders, and he does have butterfly joints that get you forward and back a fair bit. These are something that I feel was missing from the original, 80th anniversary and Build-A-Fig Juggernaut releases. Of course, he's also got shoulders that can spin all the way around and hinge up, actually a bit over 90 degrees, I'd say, which is pretty good. He's, of course, got bicep swivel, and also single-jointed elbows that actually swivel side to side. Unfortunately, the bend isn't very impressive, getting under 90 degrees. But his wrists do spin around and hinge forward and back just as usual. Now, moving on to the torso, and I don't believe he actually has a waist swivel. Yeah, he doesn't. Only a diaphragm joint. It lets him bend forward this far, which is good enough. He can arch back this far, which is pretty good. Get a bit of tilt side to side, and while he does twist all the way around, you sort of have to fight it. In fact, it sort of like almost goes back to, just facing straight sometimes, which, does make for a pretty cool old style, like, power punch play feature almost. But it is a bit of an issue with most copies of this figure that I've seen. Now, moving down below his, I'd say belt, but this version of Juggernaut isn't wearing one, he actually has very old style ball-jointed hips, sort of like the old Juggernaut Build-A-Figure. They let him kick bit under 90 degrees, more of a 45 degree kick, but they do let him get a very, very good split for a bulky character like Juggernaut. He also gets thigh swivel, along with single jointed knees with, once again, a less than 90 degree bend, but they do swivel side to side. Now, moving down to the feet, and it of course has, forward and back at the ankles along with pivot side to side, but this Juggernaut, like a lot of more recent Deluxe Marvel Legends, has toe articulation, which is pretty neat. So overall, this Juggernaut does have pretty decent articulation, especially when compared to the older release, but it's sort of meh in terms of when compared to some other Deluxe Marvel Legends. I completely understand the single-jointed elbows, but I don't get why they couldn't give him double-jointed knees. It would have made a bit more sense and also given him better articulation. But what do I know? But moving on to the figure comparisons, and we of course have to start out with the standard male and female comparisons, Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. And yeah, I showed off this Juggernaut with Spidey already, and he is humongous. I don't know how the X-Men are gonna deal with this guy. But before we get to the X-Men comparisons, I wanted to bring out the Marvel Legends Maximum Hulk, since Hulk versus Juggernaut is a pretty common matchup, and these are both massive $60 deluxe figures, and honestly, I'm surprised that this Juggernaut is a fair bit bulkier and taller than the Maximum Hulk. He's not much taller, but look at the sheer difference in bulk between these guys. But hey, speaking of the X-Men, let's bring out some members of that team. Starting, of course, with Wolverine in his Tiger Stripe outfit. Specifically ones from X-Men 97 and the Gamerverse Marvel vs. Capcom wave. I'm sure you've noticed, but I actually decided to do a bit of painting on the X-Men 97 Wolverine's arms so that he actually has painted on arm hair instead of it just being sculpted. I think it actually came out fairly well, and I'm pretty proud of it. For some of the original X-Men, though, we have the X-Factor versions of Cyclops and Jean Grey. Please note, I'm actually working on repainting the, boots of Jean Grey to be actually yellow like Cyclops, but it is a bit of a work in progress. It'll probably need another coat or two of paint. For another X-Men power couple, we have the X-Men 97 versions of Gambit and Rogue. For some additions to the team from Giant Size X-Men, we have the X-Men 97 version of Nightcrawler and the updated black suit retro-carded Storm. For some bigger members of the X-Men, we have the classic blue version of the Beast and the 80th anniversary Colossus that was actually packed with the 80th anniversary Juggernaut. And yeah, we'll see later, but this Juggernaut is even bigger than the 80th anniversary one. I should also mention that they recently revealed an updated version of Colossus that's packed with an astonishing X-Men version of Kitty Pryde, so I guess that entire 2-pack is getting phased out for me soon. Ah well, both the Juggernaut and Colossus had a really good run. But hey, we can't bring out members of the X-Men compared to Juggernaut without bringing out Kane Marco's half-brother, Charles Xavier, Professor X. Yeah, they never really talked about it in the movies or anything, but the Juggernaut is Professor X's half-brother. This is the, Patrick Stewart movie Professor X, but I do have the comic book and animated series hoverchair style version, but you will have to wait for that review to come out to see that comparison. For some X-Men villains, though, we of course have Magneto and Mr. Sinister, but I'm sure there's one comparison you really want to see with this Juggernaut. That's right, a comparison between the 80th anniversary Juggernaut and the new Gamerverse version. Now, I will say, the Gamerverse version is way better, and overall, I'd say that's the better pick, but there are two things in particular, well, actually sort of three things, that I like more about the 80th anniversary Juggernaut. I like the color scheme more. It's a lot more, of a vibrant red and, dark red. I also think the head and torso articulation is better, and the 80th anniversary Juggernaut comes with an unmasked Kane Marco head, along with a beat-up Juggernaut helmet. But I wanted to actually try something involving that head. Alright, here's the unmasked Kane Marco head on the Gamerverse Juggernaut body, and yeah, this looks ridiculous, but the figure already has ridiculous proportions, so it kinda works. Also, here's how the figure looks with the destroyed Juggernaut helmet. Also, just for fun, here's a head swap between the regular helmeted heads. Now, the Gamerverse head on the 80th anniversary body does look ridiculous to me, but I sort of like how the 80th anniversary head looks on the Gamerverse body. It's not that bad, and the brighter red does sort of make the helmet look completely separate from the actual bodysuit. So, yeah, not that bad. But hey, as is tradition, here's the Marvel Legends Gamerverse Juggernaut with Hitmonkey and Goliath. Now, the next question is, what accessories does this Juggernaut come with? Well, unfortunately, not much. In terms of hands, he comes packaged with a pair of fists, which are pretty well done. But he does come with a pair of open hands, one being a more, gripping hand, and one being a lot more wide open. Now, there is one more thing he comes with, which is a fairly odd accessory. Now, like the other Gamerverse figures, it's this sort of like effect piece. Now, you'd think it'd go on like his head, for him charging, and you probably could do that if you heated this piece up, but the better way to fit it onto this figure is you take one of the fisted hands and pop off the, fist cuffs and just pop this here right onto the fist for a punching effect. I mean, it's a pretty cool effect, and I mean, the fact you have to actually, like, sort of mess with the figure is kind of interesting, but I'm more so confused why this isn't an effect piece for the head, and also why they decided the best way to do this was to make removable, like, fist cuffs? I don't know. Pretty weird to me. Now, personally, I think these accessories are, like, the bare essentials and maybe even less, because I would have, like, preferred a new unmasked Kane Marco head along with a new, destroyed Juggernaut helmet that matches the Gamerverse version instead of the effect piece. But I feel like they also should have included the effect piece anyways, including those, because this figure retails for $60. Now, do I see a lot of the value in here? Yeah, I mean, this is an entirely new sculpt that's massive and comes with, well, 3 pretty big accessories. It's also, of course, a very popular character, so people will pay anything for it. But I feel like this figure has almost the opposite problem of Maximum Hulk. Instead of having, like, too many accessories that are kind of just meh, and there not being much upgrading done on the actual body that's reused, it's instead an all-new body that doesn't really have enough accessories. Now, the question is, do I think this Juggernaut is worth it overall? Yeah, for the most part. I think it's got an amazing sculpt, some decent articulation with 2 main problem points, great scaling, and so-and-so accessories. The biggest problems I have with this figure are the fact that the torso and head articulation are kind of a miss. Honestly, the articulation in general, I don't know, mainly in the knees and the elbows it leaves a bit to be desired, if I'm being honest. I also feel like he should have just come with more accessories. Maybe instead, sorry about that. Maybe instead 2 gripping hands and 2 super open ones in addition to the pair of fists and, the sort of punching accessory. Hell, maybe include another, like, effect piece that's for Juggernaut actually charging with his head. I think those would have been pretty cool accessories to include and would have made this more worth the $60 price tag. So overall, even though I love this Juggernaut figure, I'm probably gonna give him an 8 out of 10. It's a really good figure, and if you're a new collector and you don't have a Juggernaut, this is probably the best one I'd recommend, since the 2-pack with Colossus and Juggernaut, last time I checked, is really expensive. But if you already have a figure of Juggernaut, well, I'll let you be the judge if this figure's worth it or not. Either way, I still do really like this Juggernaut figure. It's just that objectively, it does have a fair bit of issues. Either way, though, if you've made it this far into the video, well, first of all, thank you very much for watching. And second of all, have a great day, because you deserve it. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Bye-bye.